Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live, coming at you 5 days a week, off Wednesdays and Thursdays. We're back from my weekend. For us, we're getting ready for the weekend for Week 6. As always, you won't want to miss the Sunday start-sit show. I'll give you a why so you can make your best decision on game day. I know there's a London game, but just hang in with me. If you put your questions in, sometimes there's a queue. You may have to wait, but there's a lot to talk about throughout the stream and different players you can have thoughts on, and you might even hear extra thoughts on the player that you are targeting. Also, as we're looking through, if you have Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, Channel 87, I will be on Saturday from 1 to 3 Eastern with Mario Puig, be on Sunday from 9 to 10 Eastern with Alan Soslowski. And again, there'll be great shows. Hopefully you can join us for those. All right, let's start out the Thursday night football review. And by the way, we are doing this early today, so I apologize for anybody that's catching this on the replay when you wanted to be here live. Have an appointment today. Adam Thompson is coming in at the bottom. Well, normally the bottom of the hour. It'll be the top of the hour at this point, 11 a.m. Eastern. But let's go over that Thursday night game. So there is something up with the Chiefs offense. And I know there may be people that cite these different numbers. Oh, EPA, this, that, and the other. The Chiefs are fine. They're not fine. They're not fine. Right now, they need to get help in a couple areas. First of all, they do run a lot of heavy sets with extra tight ends on the field. They try to get Mahomes some extra protection. Protection hasn't been great. Denver had one of the lightest pass rushes in the league. And they got rid of Randy Gregory, too, in a trade. Not that he'd been healthy, but Frank Clark didn't play. They're getting rid of him. And basically a weak pass rush. Mahomes was dropping back like he usually did, trying to do the Mahomes magic, trying to buy time. And yet, nothing was going on. What that tells me is, on the TV tape, you can't see everything downfield, okay? You're just watching Mahomes run. But realistically, we've seen Mahomes play for how many years? And we know as soon as somebody breaks open, he's always looking downfield. He's looking for the player to break open. His receivers, even in 4 seconds, are not getting separation, and he can't throw them the ball. Basically, we saw at least Rashee Rice popped a little bit late. He was finding some spots in the zone. The game was, at that point, it was kind of put away. I know it ended up being a 1-score game before the late field goal, but Rice chipped in a little bit late. But other than that, these receivers are not getting separation. Pacheco's doing fine. I mean, he had 6 catches. It's only 36 yards, but he gets about 15 carries a game, 15 to 18, gets you about 4 yards per carry. If he doesn't score, it's normally at a monster game. But again, when you have 6 for 36 as a receiver, you're looking at 15 points. Where you drafted Pacheco, nobody's arguing about that. So Pacheco is a locked and loaded, strong RB2 going forward. You could have an occasional RB1 weeks in there for sure. But again, multiple touchdowns would help him get there. You're not going to get 6 catches every week. McKinnon had 5 targets. Is only 3 for 20, so nothing big. He had a long catch where he stepped out of bounds. There was a penalty called on the play as well. So there's that. But the beat writer from that team in the offseason said they would ramp McKinnon up around mid-season and get him back in the typical role because they know he's older. They know he's injury history. And so McKinnon will become more viable, but he's tough and hold on fantasy rosters now because he's basically not getting you many points. But he would be a player if you have a bench spots and he's maybe in somebody else's roster. You might be able to acquire him in trade because I do believe what the beat writer said. They're going to use him much more heavily in the second half of the season. So that could be a buying opportunity. Also, I do think it's a buying opportunity at Kadarius Toney. He didn't look good on a lot of things he did, but he played 42% of the snaps. It's been ramped up each week. That's a very solid number from him. He had 6 targets. Now, he didn't do much. 3 for 9. He caught that touchdown. Fine. But the Chiefs need to get something going besides Kelsey in the passing game. And their opportunities are going to be Rashee Rice and Kadarius Toney. And so we will see what Andy Reid does them. My guess is at some point, he's going to have to lean on both of them. Sky Moore, he had a deep target again. I think I drew up DPI. He's really not getting it done. He's not what they wanted. And Richie James is coming back from the IR, and I have no idea if he could jump Sky Moore, and he may not. But again, if you're in a deeper league and you can stash Richie James is an accomplished slot receiver. And my guess is he may be able to do more at this point than Sky Moore. Don't know that he's going to even have a shot. But if you have a deeper league and you got a stash spot, they need help. And he could be the guy that ends up helping them a little bit. Mahomes, if you're rostering him, you're taking the floor games, 1 touchdown again. Other than the Bears game, he's not putting up monster fantasy performances. He did run for 31 yards for theirs, so there's that. So he didn't kill you, but he's certainly not getting you. If you spent the first or second quarterback pick to get him, he's not done that. But again, he doesn't hurt you any week. Fantasy points, probably got you a little over 20. The interception, depending on what you get dinged for that. So he got you over 20. So there's that. There's safety in that. But it wasn't like this game, you were hoping to get 35 out of him against this Denver defense that can't stop anybody. And that was really damning of the Chiefs offense that they can't get it going against this defense. Again, Andy Reid's a genius, but he's got to figure out something with those receivers, or they need to bring somebody in. Well, we'll see what happens with that. All right. The Broncos side of the ball, I've been saying it for weeks. Russell Wilson for fantasy. Most games, he's compiling some numbers. And I hear a lot of analysts saying, oh, man, Russell Wilson's so much better than he was last year. Really? When the games are competitive, he stinks. Whenever the games are in question, he's not putting touchdowns on the board. Now, fortunately for him, in most games, the Chiefs trail. And in most weeks, he put up fantasy points. So for fantasy, great. Go ahead and use them. Obviously, this week it didn't work. 95 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. He did run for 31 yards. But, realistically, it sounds like they're in sell mode. It sounds like they're going to trade either Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy. Who knows? Maybe both. If they strip out that, what's left? Russell Wilson, when he faces a good pass rush, he's under some pressure. The running's been nice. But other than that, I think you're looking about quarterback 20-ish because he runs, and they're bad on defense. Last night they looked better, but I think it was just the Chiefs. It wasn't really them. So that said, Wilson is what he is. But I'm not buying any of the analysts that are saying, oh, he's so much better. No, he's not. He's terrible. But that's just me. All right. Javonte Williams, here's the deal. So Javonte Williams has the most touches in the backfield. 10 carries, 52 yards. It was good for him. He's normally 4 yards a carry almost every game he plays. So it was one of his better performances on the ground. Now, nothing in the receiving game, no touchdowns. So he gets you 5.2 fantasy points no matter what league you're in. Unless you get point per carry or something like that. Not many leagues like that. Here was the thing, though. After Jaleel McLaughlin saw 33% of the snaps the week that Williams got hurt, last week when Williams was out, McLaughlin paces the backfield with 40% of the snaps. Now, he gets 9 touches, which is 1 less than Javonte, 7 carries for 30 yards. So his 4 yards per carry was worse than Javonte's 5.2, but fine. He had 9 yards on the first carry of the game. After that, he was 6 for 21, and he had 2 catches for 12. So 6.2 PPR points was 1 better than Javonte, but it certainly wasn't what you wanted. You were hoping for more because a lot of people were starting Jaleel McLaughlin because he looked great on his 10 touches. But I warned some people who asked me questions about him. I said, all right, understand he looks great, but when you're getting 10 or less touches a game, you are dependent on a couple of big plays to catch for fantasy. And he had gotten in the end zone too in those other games. So there was that. And so now we're looking at 6.2 PPR points. Well, that's not great. But again, we're a running back starved world. It looks to me on one game, Samaje Perine only played 17% of the snaps. It looks to me like right now, McLaughlin is ahead of Perine. My guess is that's going to be a pretty typical backfield split. And maybe Javonte wasn't 100%, but it's going to be Javonte and McLaughlin. Now I think Perine just chips in. I think the genie can't, like I said this on a video I did last week, I can't really put the genie back in the bottle. Jaleel McLaughlin's done something, and they're going to be able to count on him, I think, to a degree. The receiver-wise, wow, it's gotten ugly for Jerry Jeudy. I cautioned people for this in the preseason. I know he had that great 4-game stretch or 5-game stretch to end last season. It was some fortuitous opponents. It was a blowout against Kansas City where they, were able to get him a ton of work after the game was out of hand. It was a Rams team that was checked out for the season. And I cautioned people. I said, it was a short sample, blow up he had. And I didn't think the rest of the season indicated it. I didn't think it was this bad. But right now, he doesn't look at 3 for 14, 5 targets. The best thing for Jerry Jeudy is if he gets traded. If he gets traded, give him a new opportunity, new team. I always said Russell Wilson, he's not the guy you want throwing to somebody who's primarily in the slot. That doesn't – now, when he had Tyler Lockett, that was different in Seattle. Tyler Lockett was stretching the field from the slot. He wasn't running a ton of these underneath routes in the middle where all the bodies were. He was going vertical. That was a different game. But a typical slot set of receiver routes, that's not really Russell Wilson's strength. Marvin Mims doesn't get a target, plays 23% of the snaps. I imagine if Jeudy or Sutton gets traded, he does move into a heavy snap share. But Brandon Johnson is still out snapping Mims, 31% to 23%, and Johnson got 2 targets. Now, it was weird. I thought I had read yesterday that they waived little Jordan Humphrey, and didn't remember seeing him on the field. But when I went to the NFL's site, they gave him 29% of the snaps. So I got to go back and look that over and find out what I missed there. Greg Dulcich, hopefully he was just getting eased in from the injury. 21% of the snaps, he catches a 3-yard pass, and that's it. I have to think that he will be heavily used, and it would benefit him if Jeudy or Sutton were traded, because he could fall into a lot of targets. We'll see how that works. But again, it's where they're using him. They talked about using him in a joker role where they moved him all over the place. That would be in his best interest. But we will see what happens, because if it's the middle of the field stuff, again, Russell Wilson in the middle of the field, they often don't make a great combination. All right, if you're enjoying the show, please consider hitting the like or subscribe button. If you're on RotoWire or YouTube, appreciate you being here. Also, if you could follow me at Jim Coventry NFL on the X, that would be appreciated as well. Prop betting threads are coming out. Weekend, I try to put up some fantasy relevant material as well. So I try to give you some information to help you get ready for your fantasy weekend. All right, let's talk about Monday. We got to more of the players trending up. Let's get to some of the players who I think are trending down a little bit. Overall, Tony Pollard's been okay. He's getting the lead work. We get that. And I know it was a blowout loss to San Francisco last week. 11 for 40, 70 fumbles, 3 catches, 13. And but he's not. I mean, that was 2 weeks ago. Against San Francisco, it was 8 for 29 and 4 for catches for 35. So he's been okay, but he's not putting up the monster games. But he's getting usage. The good thing is, like last week, it was 5 targets. When they were winning weeks back, he had a 25 carry and 8 target game. He had a 23 carry and a 3 target game. So overall, don't worry about Tony Pollard. He's trending down right now, but Dallas has had a couple games that have been weird. Sometimes the defense races them out to a big lead and the game gets a little bit weird from there. Then they got blown out. Things are going to stabilize for him. He's an excellent running back. Their offensive line, they had everybody back. My guess is they're still kind of getting closer to 100%. Dak isn't going to face San Francisco every week. And I do think, and not that you were ever thinking of benching Pollard, you weren't, but don't worry. He is going to be fine. So I have no qualms and worries about him at all. He's already had some good games. The yards per carry are not what we've liked. But again, I blame a lot of that on the offensive line injuries they've had. Now, hopefully, I don't know how long they stay healthy for, but while they're healthy, I do think we could see a real big ceiling game this week. And it's a Monday night game, so it's not on the single slate for DFS. But definitely, I'll be looking at the prop for Tony Pollard as well. All right, Rhamondre Stevenson. At this point, I don't know what we do. Because the problem is, in the last 4 games, he has not had more than 10 receiving yards in a game. And his total receiving yardage over those 4 games is 23 yards. He needs receiving work to get things done. Also, obviously, Patriots aren't scoring points. So there's no red zone work. There's no goal line work. He doesn't have a touchdown in 4 weeks. Oh, he has 1 touchdown 4 weeks ago. He scored a touchdown 4 weeks ago. So 1 touchdown in 4 games. His rushing yardage, 24, 30, 59, and 50. That's it. So right now, the offensive line is brutal. And they had some injuries, but they're largely healthy now. They're not good. This is the first time I can remember under Bill Belichick's watch that New England has had a horrible offensive line. This is not good right now. I do not think it's turning around for Stevens. It's not his fault. He's a very good player, extremely talented. Hard inside runner, could get to the second level and do some damage. I think he's a great receiver. I think he's a great receiver. I do think he is for his size, because when he gets the ball and he's in space, he's a menace in a great way. I mean, he's excellent. So they're playing the Raiders this week. I would start him if you have to start him this week, because again, it's very hard to find running backs. The Raiders are a good matchup for him, especially the Raiders coming off a big Monday night win and a short week. Stevenson could get going against the Raiders. If he has a big game here, he is potentially a player you want to consider selling, because that offensive line is going to be a big problem. Zeke Elliott's getting work as well. And it's not like Stevenson's not. He's getting work. But again, there's just nothing there. And the offense is just brutal. So there's that. Miles Sanders. I imagine he's still hurt. I imagine he's working his way back from the injury that he had. And so that is shown. Last week and the week prior, he played less than half the snaps. They were over 40%, 46 and a 43%. But he had a 7 for 32. The yardage was fine, but just 7 carries. And then the first week back from injury, he went 13. And not that he missed time with the injury, but he was injured. 13 for 19. So right now, Chuba Hubbard and Sanders are splitting the work. But I have to assume at some point Sanders gets healthy, but the offensive line is not good. We were expecting a lot from the offensive tackles. They've had 2 interior linemen out all year to this point. I don't know if and when they're coming back. And so those losses there, tackles underperforming, it's a mess there too. And they're trailing a lot. Now, Sanders does have a 9-target game the week that he hurt his hip. So if the healthier he gets, you could see some targets as a PPR value out of him. But right now, he is volume-based, mid-range running back too. He's in that Najee Harris bucket right now. That's about where he's at. So it's not so hot there. And keep hanging in there. Top of the hour, got Adam Thompson from bookies.com come in to give you some winning gambling picks. We'll break the games out too. It'll help you that way as well. DeAndre Swift. I say he's trending down, but it's not a bad thing. It's just that he had those 2 huge yardage games. His first 2 games, he had the $175, he had the $130. Last 2 weeks, though, it's been okay. I mean, you're starting him, and with PPR, he's like a top 12 running back, but 14 carries for 56. 4 yards carry, it's fine, but he's behind the Philly offensive line. We expected more. In that week 4 game, he scores a touchdown, catches 4 for 23, so he's fine. PPR is just absolutely fine. And last week, 17 carries, 70 yards. Again, about 4 yards a carry. We were hoping for a lot more, but he catches 6 passes for 38 yards. So again, you're looking at 16 or 17 PPR points. So he's fine. It's just that those first couple of games when we thought we were going to get the world beater DeAndre Swift, who behind that line and with those passing weapons and defense not being able to stack, we were hoping that he would be putting up 100 yards rushing with some consistency, and maybe he still does. But I'm still hopeful that as Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator, keeps going through the season, he starts to pick some things up, because he struggled. And the smartest thing he did was he was like, well, what the hell? Just throw the ball to A.J. Brown. And so they got that figured out. They got Goddard involved last week. But he's really searching. Brian Johnson's searching for clues and answers. And he doesn't have the orchestration together where this entire offense is working and feeding off each other. They're still scoring a lot of points, and they're still winning, so nobody's crying. But that said, we would like to see more from DeAndre. So if we would like to see in that system and with the offensive line, we would like to see him as a top 5 running back. If he's getting the usage he's getting, which is over 60% of the snaps, realistically, he could perform in that range. Because when he was with Detroit, we all said he's just not getting any work. And yet when he would not get the work, he would still be productive on a per touch basis. And he went from a great line in Detroit to a great line in Philly. But this is a healthier situation. So again, he's starting because he's clearly a running back 1. He's just not what we were hoping on those first couple of weeks we would see. Trending now, Tyler Algier. He's getting the work. He had another 17 carries last week. I mean, he's got 3 games with at least 15 carries and then 2 games at 7. And he's getting some targets, just not getting yardage. And so last year, Atlanta had an elite run blocking system. They were just mowing down the defense right and left. The defenses in the NFL this year, they're playing with lighter personnel because they defend the pass, but they've gotten better tactically with the smaller personnel on finding different ways to attack some of these running attacks. And I really do think that's part of what's going on in Atlanta. Atlanta just has not been able to get things going on the ground. Now, Bijan had that 14 for 100-yard game, but he's been catching the ball, scoring touchdown, but he hasn't been gold as a yard per carry running back. But Algier is just not getting it done. 40 yards on the ground last week is 4 PPR points. He had 2 points, the prior week, 3 or 4 the prior. He's just not getting it done. He's 5 or less fantasy points in every game since week 1. So you can't play him right now. Now, could he fall in the end zone twice on Sunday? Yes, could happen. They're playing Washington. Could happen. But right now, you are really grasping. It could happen. But I can't start him with confidence right now. Now, if you have bye weeks and injuries, then you got to plug him in. At least there's volume. And maybe something breaks. Maybe he breaks a long run. Maybe he gets to 3 targets again and one of them turns into a 20-yard catch. That's all possible. So get that. But just it's a very downward trend right now. And I don't know that Atlanta's going to have answers for this. And I think part of the problem is this too. Nobody fears Desmond Ridder. And so defense is typically just like, okay, well, we can go get your run game and Desmond go ahead and beat us deep. Now, Houston paid a price for that last week. The Texans, who are usually great against the pass, terrible against the run, they oversold out to take their run deficiency and went to slow it down. And they had some success. Ridder crushed them through the air. So that they can't afford to sacrifice what they do best. And I think that D'Amico Ryan has learned a valuable lesson at the expense of a loss in that game. All right, Gus Edwards is next. Love Gus Edwards. John Harbaugh just will not give him much work. Now, not much. He's not going to see targets. He had a 3-target game. He got 2 of them for 1 in week 4. He has no targets in the other 3 games. He gets 10 to 15 carries a game. He needs a touchdown to cash for fantasy. Otherwise, you're typically looking at a ceiling of 7 fantasy points. That's about what you're looking at. When he gets a touchdown, he gets you to 12, 13. It's unfortunate because I really feel he should be getting 15 to 18 carries in this offense. I have no idea how Justice Hill is getting work ahead of him. Do not comprehend it, understand it. He's a 3rd down scat back who never was good at that. Gus Edwards has been nothing but a 5-yard per carry guy his whole career, even last year coming off an ACL. Do not understand it. Do not get it. It's not going to likely change, though. It's already kind of that way. And now Keaton Mitchell's coming in, and we don't know what his role is going to be. I mean, you think he'd push Justice Hill out of the way. They're going to need Edwards for his size at some point. But again, you're just praying for a touchdown if you're playing Gus Edwards. Hey, remember, I said earlier, if you give me a follow at Jim Coventry NFL on the X, I'm doing actionable advice Twitter threads every week. Not only does it help you for player props, those also will help you for DFS. It breaks down certain players that I think are going to have big games. So I would look at it for that. Some of these players are players and lineups that you might be considering. I'll take a look at those as well. But I think those are going to be very useful for many people. And remember, if you can hit the like and subscribe button, it'd be greatly appreciated on RotoWire YouTube. And I'll be on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Channel 87, Saturdays 1 to 3 Eastern, Sundays 9 to 10 Eastern. Appreciate all the support. And make sure you're on the start sit stream with me on this channel Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. All right, let's talk some receivers. CeeDee Lamb, got it. He's trending down too. Last week, obviously, they played the 49ers. There was that. But in the last 3 games, 4 catches in each game, no more than 7 targets, no more than 53 yards, scored a touchdown. Now, again, Dallas has had weird games. They've had blowout wins where they haven't need to throw. They had a blowout loss where they couldn't throw. And it's just been a perfect storm of scenarios. CeeDee Lamb will be fine. This week, he will be fine. I'm waiting for them to post a player prop on him. They don't have a prop on his yardage out yet, but I am going to go over that yardage prop. I don't think the Chargers have any ability to hang with him. They will deploy him in the slot outside. I have no answers, I think, for CeeDee Lamb. And I do think he's going to come up with an eruption game here. I think that this Dallas offense will be a shootout. This Dallas Chargers game will be a shootout. Joey Bosa's limited. He's got, I believe it's a hamstring. If he plays, I don't think he's anywhere near 100%. The Dallas offensive line, like I said, is coming back together. Dallas might be a real week-to-week team, depending on opponent. But CeeDee Lamb, I don't worry. I think this week he comes firing back. We talked earlier about Jerry Jeudy, so don't need to bring him up again. Jahan Dotson, Again, nothing to do with talent. We know he can play. We know he can win at the catch point against almost anybody. We know in the red zone he has amazing elevation and ball skills there. We know that he could be a dominant NFL receiver if given the proper opportunity. Not likely going to happen here. Terry McLaurin is the number one, and Sam Howell is often forced to throw the ball in the middle of the field because A, he doesn't understand how to process pressure. And then B, he either takes a sack or he gets it out to the middle, which are the best throws. But the middle of the field, it's been Logan Thomas, it's been Curtis Samuel. It's not been Jahan Dotson. Dotson, he's had targets. I mean, think about it, he's 24 targets in 4 games. But he hasn't had a game with more than 4 catches. So his biggest yardage game in the last 4 weeks, 30 yards last week. So he's 30 yards. He scored 1 touchdown. So basically, you're looking at a guy about 5 to 6 PPR points a week. If he finds the end zone, he got you at 12. Hard to start him right now, regardless of opponent. It's not his fault. Super talented player, like I said. He needs a better situation. Sam Howell's not that. Sam Howell is going to compile for fantasy. So that's another story. But Sam Howell is not a good NFL quarterback. Very rarely do later round quarterbacks become something great. I mean, sure, he's shown some flashes, but he can't understand the pressure. And maybe that changes. I'm not optimistic that it does, but Jahan Dotson has been the biggest loser in this one. McLaurin's fine enough. Logan Thomas is the big winner. Curtis Samuel, the bottom could drop out at any time, but he's been productive for where you drafted him. I mean, his numbers are a little better than Dotson's, but again, the expectation when you drafted Samuel is he was depth. So I obviously you're saying start Dotson or Samuel, it's close because Dotson's getting enough targets. Samuel's getting a little more yardage. So it's kind of funny, but that's where we're at. For about 4 more minutes, we got Adam Thompson from bookies.com coming in, come break down a few games here, give you some gambling advice. Brandon Cooks, maybe you can cut him. He had the knee injury a couple of weeks back and only missed a game. And then he came back and hasn't really done anything. I mean, his last 3 games, 27 yards to the max, obviously no touchdowns. I don't know. I don't know if it's chemistry. I didn't think he had lost a step. Last year, he was a disgruntled employee in Houston. But when he was on his game, he played fine. But just 7 catches for 51 yards in 3 weeks, not so much. So, you can't start him right now. And even if he has a big game on your bench, it's not like it's your fault. And I know this game is probably going to shoot out. I mean, believe it or not, Michael Gallup has been more productive than Cooks has been at this point. Jake Ferguson has been more productive than Brandon Cooks at this point. Could he turn it around? It's possible. I won't say no, but right now there's nothing quantifiable that I see that makes me think, yeah, it's on the precipice. It's going to break. His targets went down from 7 to 4 to 2 over the last 3 weeks. So there's that. He's playing, his actually snaps have gone down 80 to 70 to 65. So maybe this is a trend the team sees something. Maybe they feel he's not fitting what they're doing. So right now, just very difficult to start him. If you haven't dropped Rashad Bateman, drop him. I can't see any reason to keep him. He has less than 30 yards in his last 3 games played. He dropped a touchdown last week. Don't know how that happened. They had right in his hands and dropped, but he's not doing anything. And I don't know what it is. Last year, before he got hurt, he played like 6 games. It wasn't a lot of catches, but he looked dynamite. He looked like the next best thing. He looked like the guy they drafted, like the guy who was going to take the league by storm. But here they are with Odell Beckham having missed time. I know he worked back last week. Zay Flowers, the screen pass specialist. They needed Bateman. They really need Bateman. He has done nothing. So 5 catches for 32 yards in his last 3 games. Any player could turn it around. I just don't see any reason to think that that's going to happen right about now. Tight ends, Dalton Kincaid. So it's weird. We have this year where we have a bunch of rookies drafted fairly early and a big talk about, which ones are going to break out, become the big deal. And Dalton Kincaid was the first one drafted and goes to Buffalo. They're going to use him as a slot receiver. That's a perfect storm. You don't expect him to be a tight end. It hasn't panned out. He had a 43-yard game 4 weeks ago, but he had a 2 catch for 3, a 4 for 27, a 2 for 19. Hasn't found the end zone. So right now, I mean, realistically, Jake Ferguson's a much better option. Player you picked up on the waiver wire could be. Hunter Henry's a way better option. I know they're rostered right now. But Dalton Kincaid, if you have any better solution, Logan Thomas is a way better option than Dalton Kincaid. So definitely consider dropping him. Again, I don't see this changing. I just think what the Bills wanted to do in theory made sense. In practicality, maybe not so much. You see, we should have Adam Thompson coming in. Let me just see if I screwed up anything with him here. All right, maybe not. All right, so, but that said, Dalton Kincaid, I just don't know what we can do with him. It's a very difficult call, but I do think that you find another tight end. And we got Adam Thompson here. Adam, just in time. Good to see you. Happy Friday, my friend. It's week 6.
That's right. It is week 6. Boy, it feels like it just started, and here we are a month and a half in. It's pretty crazy.
A third of the season, because it used to be the quarter poll. Now it's an 18-week season. So we have to recalibrate how we broach this. It's the third way through the season. That's nuts, Adam.
Yeah, eventually it'll be 26 weeks. It'll just go on. It'll be a 4-week off season. They already control the narrative about 11 and a half out of 12 months. They might as well take the whole 12 months.
Oh my gosh, the NFL can never get enough. This is Adam Thompson of bookies.com. You can find him at bookies.adam. Call him the ATM, the substance over style odds maker and handicapper. He was formerly with CBS Sportsline, but he has been tearing it up with gambling.com for a good while now. And like I say every week, watch who you're getting your gambling picks from. You'll hear when Adam speaks like you do every week. He breaks it down so you understand more. Just take him. No, he gives you a lot of depth. He's a documented winner. Adam, let's just get right into it. Let's get into the London game. We got the Ravens, the Titans. Now, the Titans have been rotten on the road. I guess you have to call this a road game. The Ravens have been weird. I don't know how they gave that game away to the Steelers. The Ravens are -4, though. How are you looking at this game?
Yeah, and this will be interesting. We talked about this last week. Jacksonville was there for a week. What does that mean versus Buffalo, who was just getting there? Jacksonville won that game, which I did not pick. I really like the Bills in that one. But that was interesting. And this is kind of interesting, too, because Baltimore got there early and Tennessee got there late. So what does that mean? There's no way to really know for sure, of course. But it's just interesting. It'll be something we can maybe use in the future. But as far as this week goes, both teams are coming off pretty bad losses. Baltimore should have beaten Pittsburgh by 2+ touchdowns. They had 7 drops. Pro Football Focus gave Lamar Jackson one of its highest ratings as a quarterback last week, despite pretty bad stats, because he was doing what he needed to do other than that late interception, which was terrible. But everybody around him basically stunk. But they have a very clear path to getting better and getting back on track. And that's everybody just getting better and getting back on track, doing what they've been doing all week or all season. And the Titans, they don't have a clear path to success, especially offensively. The Ravens ranked 7th versus the pass and the run. Derrick Henry, when he rushes for 80+ yards, these Titans are 2-0. When he doesn't, they're winless on the season. The Ravens have only allowed a lead running back to go for over 59 yards once all season. I just think it's a much easier path to bouncing back for Baltimore. I think the matchups are there. So I like the Ravens. Laying just 4 points on a neutral site, I'll take that.
Yeah, and again, we mentioned earlier, Tennessee, those games that you mentioned where Derrick Henry didn't do it, those were away. And for whatever reason, it's a small, tiny sample size, but they have been a drastically different team at home than when they're not at home. The Ravens, they're pretty, I always say, venue neutral. The Ravens have always been well coached. No matter where they're playing, you're going to get a good product from them. And I think that's a wise pick here because we know, like you said, Harbaugh and the organization, get them there early, plan for success. Vrabel's a good coach too, but the Ravens are a great organization. This is an organizational bet here. And they probably, you think they win this game by 8 to 10 points, something like that, or maybe a little more? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think a solid touchdown is a safe bet. And, if they get behind early, as Tannehill, I used to love Tannehill and his numbers, he wouldn't get the love, but, you look at his quarterback rating for, a 4 or 5 year stretch was close to Mahomes. I remember, for a while there, Not anymore. Last year was a real down year, and this year is just not there. And they brought in DeAndre Hopkins. That was going to help. Hasn't really helped that much for him or for Hopkins for that matter. So yeah, I think if they get behind, they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Real quick, I'll say stylistic fit. Tannehill was great, primarily play action slants and over the top. And he had A.J. Brown. And that made a massive. Now you bring in Hopkins, who's just your outside grinder. It was a bad fit for him. He's still getting yardage, and he's been fine. But you're right. And Sauger's in the house. Morning, Sauger. All right, let's move on to another game, Adam. Let's go to a rematch of week 1. We had Anthony Richardson in his career debut. Obviously, we won't see him for quite a while. And the Jaguars did take care of business. Good morning, Charlene. They took care of business by 10 in that game. Jacksonville's at home. They're only favored by 4 here, coming off of 2 weeks across the pond. How do you handicap this game, Adam?
Yeah, Minshew magic, going back to where it started in Jacksonville. Maybe a bit of a revenge game for him. Show Jacksonville that they didn't make a mistake. They got Trevor Lawrence, but it worked out for both sides here. But Minshew, I don't know if Minshew is that big of a downgrade from Richardson. I mean, he's been in 3 games. Richardson gets hurt almost every game he's played in so far. So Minshew has played a lot of games. He's completing almost 70% of his passes. 2 of those games, he has a quarterback rating over 110. The only one he did was against that Ravens defense that we just got done talking about. That's top 10 in everything. The Jacksonville defense is not top 10 in anything. They're 26th against the pass specifically. So I think Minshew, there's a path to success for him. And we talk about using the run to set up the pass. Zach Moss has been very capable, and now Jonathan Taylor should get more touches. He was kind of a very limited part of the action last week. He should be more part of the action this week. And now you got both those guys setting up Minshew's pass game. I think they're going to score some points, Indy. I think Indy is going to surprise some people here. I like Trevor Lawrence, but at home as a home favorite, he has a terrible track record in situations just like this. And against the Colts in that week 1 game, it was kind of a grind. It was kind of a struggle. They had to really kind of pull away late to get that win. I think Indy hangs around. You can get 4.5 at some places for them. So if you can get 4.5, I like Indy to cover actually.
Yeah, 4.5 is even a cooler number because you see those 21-17 games or things like that, 24-20s. That extra half point would be nice. But even at 4, it's more than a field goal. And Indy, they do have some injuries they're dealing with, but like you said, they've been competitive. And Shane Steichen is a great offensive coach, and he's proven that with what he has in the cupboard right here. Now, one last thing for fantasy players, Adam, I think you could start Zach Moss for 1 more week because last week Taylor played 15% of the snaps. I think this week it's probably closer to 50-50, and I would imagine the following game Taylor takes the job to which they're paying him a ton of money. So they can't leave him but Moss probably then goes down to maybe 7-8 touches tops a game. But I think that's about the end of that rope. Do you see it any differently?
No, I doubt it. Taylor's the man. You can't deny him. Zach Moss has done great in his stead. I think he's earned himself a future contract somewhere else later. But you put those 2 guys together, and you've got an Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon type of vibe. Not quite to that same power, thunder and lightning. But you got 2 really good running backs in the backfield that can both make plays.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch that one, but I'm very excited for Indy Jacksonville. All right, let's go to Washington and Atlanta next. So Atlanta, it's interesting. They're 2.5-point favorites. Last year, we remember, they were a powerhouse running team, great system between the line, the tight ends. They would just overwhelm you in the running game, and it didn't matter who they had. Tyler Algier was carving it up. This year, Bijan's putting numbers up, but the rushing game, it is in neutral. They are not having that success. And last week, Houston made a huge tactical error. They're normally great against the pass. They sold out to stop the run, and Ritter killed them through there, and they lost because of it. Anyway, they play Washington coming off a long week, an embarrassing loss to the Bears. Atlanta again at home. How are you breaking this one down, Adam?
Yeah, what is Desmond Ritter? I think we're still trying to figure that out. Last year they brought him in for Mariota, and he torpedoed their playoff chances basically. But it was a good experience, I guess, if that's what they were going for. This year, they're still a running team first, but that was an interesting game for Houston. They went all in, like you said, to stop that run game, and Ritter actually made them pay. which, kudos to him, because I don't think a lot of people thought he could, but he has weapons around him. And you're just seeing that growing and maturation. And I think I think they can score a lot of points here against Washington. Washington's allowed 33 plus points in each of their last 3 games. They're not 4 games actually. They're not stopping anybody right now.
No.
They're better against the run. Actually, they're not good against the run. That's a problem. They have a good D line, but their D line likes to pin their ears back. They like to go after quarterbacks. Yep. That's perfect for Atlanta, because they're going to run the ball around you, and if Washington adjusts, play action pass, and Desmond Ridder can make those plays. And I really like what Sam Howell is in Washington, but this is a top 5 ranked anyway pass defense that the Falcons have. And this Falcons team is built for the dome. They're built to play at home. On the road, they're averaging 6.5 points a game. At home, it's about 23 points a game. So, they're built to run around. I think they just have too many good matchups, especially up front, both sides of the ball, really. And I like, -2.5. I think that's a great line for Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta brought in a lot of good defensive players in the offseason, and they have really made a difference. They're not the household names, but I really do think Jesse Bates, the safety, is going to get Sam Howell in a mistake or two, and I could see him picking a pass off and making a big play out of that. Howell is taking too much time in the pocket. Atlanta's getting a rush, but I'm with you, Adam. I think this is the game Atlanta gets that running game on track. You said they're built for this dome. They are, and they should take care of business. Washington, I think people are kind of remember some of their early season somewhat successes. This is not a good football team. The Bears kind of proved that.
Well, and Howell is on track to get sacked more than any quarterback in history. So that offensive line is not getting it done at all. The Falcons do get pressure on quarterbacks, but they don't blitz. They're one of the fewest blitzing teams in the league, despite I think they're ranked 4th in the league in yards allowed through the air, despite really not going after the quarterback. They're just kind of sitting back. That might actually stop Howell from running the ball. That might limit him a little bit. I think the matchups are all there. I think, Atlanta by 3 at least. I like the -2.5 for sure on Atlanta.
Yeah, that's a solid one. And we're going to do one more. And those who care, okay, now I started the show half an hour early, so you'll have to rewind it later and catch it. But we're going to do one more. I got an appointment, so I got to get out a little bit today. Let's talk about Philly -7 against the Jets. Jets been playing good defense at home, but Philly's been putting things together. How are you breaking this one down, Adam?
Yeah, the Jets, their defense gets after quarterbacks. I've been really impressed by their defense. They're just kind of balls to the wall. They're just it's hectic. It's crazy. We saw what they did against Mahomes. And if you can do that against Mahomes, you can do that against anybody. But they can't stop the run, and they need the extra resources to do that, this week. And, the Eagles, they're not blowing out teams. They seem like they're disappointing people with their efforts, but they're beating everybody. They haven't lost. All their wins have been by at least 5 or so points. Right now this is at -7, -6.5. I think is fair. They need that run. The Jets need the run game. The other factor is the Jets really need that run game. And we saw it last week against Denver. Breece Hall went for like 177 yards. They finally got that win. That allowed took some pressure off Zach Wilson. He could actually use the play action, make plays. But there's a big difference between the Denver run defense and the Eagles run defense. One's ranked 32nd in the league. The other one's ranked number 1 in the league. So you couldn't ask for a bigger difference. So I think if the Jets try they're probably going to, they're going to try to set up that run again. It's not going to work. And it's all going to kind of, it's going to domino from there, I think. So this could be blowout city. I think the Jets might be in for a bit of a rude awakening here. So I like the Eagles to get it done and cover.
Yeah. Zach Wilson, he's had a couple of somewhat moments. Probably not going to have him here, Adam.
Yeah,
not so good.
If you need Zach Wilson to make plays to be successful, you're probably not going to be successful.
Nope, you're in pretty big trouble. Adam, tell everybody where they can find you and your work.
Follow me on X, also known as Twitter, at BookiesAdam, and bookies.com/picks. Most of my picks for this weekend are already up. I got one more I'm going to add later today. A spoiler alert, it's going to be Bills Giants over on points. I think the Bills are 44.5. I think the Bills might get to 38 by themselves. And Tyrod Taylor, if he plays, he might surprise some people. He can will the Giants to 10 points, and that'll easily get you over.
Will them to 10 points. I love that. But you're right. How ambitious. Oh my gosh. Yeah, again, every Friday, Adam Thompson, you don't want to miss the show. Remember, Sunday we have the live stream starts it. We're here on Saturdays as well. Everybody, for Adam Thompson, I'm Jim Coventry. Have a great rest of your day. Charlene, you're out as well. Tomorrow, regular time tomorrow. Today was just a weird one. It was a one-off today. I have an appointment I got to get to, so I got to get out of here. But yeah, every other day, 11 a.m. Sorry for those who were here on usual time, and I let you down. I apologize. Have a great day, everyone.